Good afternoon. I know it's morning over here on the West Coast. Today, we're going to be talking about multi-location scaling for multi-location on landing page. And I've got Amy and Vanessa with me. My name is Steve Wiideman. Let's just do maybe some quick introductions. Let's go on my camera. It's be left to right. So Amy, you want to kind of give us some background?
Sure. I have been in SEO for almost 3 years. Most recently was at Tripadvisor on the attractions team and was part of the cost-cutting layoffs, so open to new opportunities.
Fantastic. Vanessa.
Yeah, and similar to Amy, I've been in SEO for about 3 years now, and most recently at Tripadvisor, and then also, unfortunately, was part of all of the layoffs, but I'm starting a new opportunity with Instacart, so that's really exciting. Started this week. Yep.
Outstanding. So like me, you guys live and breathe search, right?
Yes.
Very
Exactly.
cool. So, and for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Steve Wiideman, and I've been in search for a couple decades, and I'm really passionate about multi-location. So we've worked with some fun multi-location brands and working with map listings as well as organic. So long time doing this. Enjoy it. It's fun. Like to be part of the forums and the Facebook groups. And now there's a new digital marketing organization group where we all kind of got to meet, which was neat. So cool. Let's get into it. I have a list of questions. Just give us something to start with. First one, of course, is the basics, right? One of the things that we want to talk about are what are some basic things when we think about our local landing page that any website designer needs to think about. You're going to target all of these different cities, and you have to do it at scale. You can't just like flip a switch and have all sorts of great content for 300 cities. So what are like some of the basics, kind of in your opinions, that you think are sort of fundamental to local landing page?
Yeah. So we worked on the experiences side. So for us, a lot of the basics to do it at scale is obviously the name of your business, or the name for us of like the attraction that we wanted to do at scale, or the type of activity, the address, the phone number, a web link if you have it, just the simple basics to have up there so that when Google's crawling your site, they understand the relevancy of that page and its location to where searchers might be based on their IP address or their zip code.
I think another thing too, we focused a lot on like internationalization, or like, different places around the world, and spelling things like, the word traveler with 1 L or 2 L's for the UK versus the US, and even, of course, other languages as well.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's really important. Some of the things I was thinking about were like security, like HTTPS. And I remember last year there was this update that happened. If you didn't have a certain type of security, that Google would actually put a little note in the browser, like, by the way, the site isn't necessarily secure. I thought that was something that made me not want to fill out forms. It really sort of pushed me away from sites that I wasn't really sure about. The other thing I thought was privacy. I've noticed when you do Google ads that your ads will get disapproved if you don't have a privacy policy, or if you have a form and you don't really say how you're going to use the person's information. So I thought that was something really interesting too.
Yeah, and I'd say another thing too, if you're just starting out to figure out what pages you want to build out, like your taxonomy and how you want to do it by, like for us, we had you had the country, the state, the region, the city, and then we even had neighborhood pages if you're building that at scale. Obviously, it depends on what industry you're in. So certain things might not be for travel, because a lot of people searched by neighborhood. That was really important to us, but you might not need that. In Instacart's case, maybe only the city is enough right now for how people are shopping with like grocery delivery services as well. And you want to figure out on your back end based on where you want the user to land, if you want to do it by their IP location or their zip code onto those different pages as well.
From personalize the experience.
Yeah, taxonomy perspective.
Why make them click if you can get them past the click on your own, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Some other ideas that I kind of jotted down were like accessibility. And this is a controversial one for SEO, because aside from alt tags, SEOs have never really, for the most part, published anything about how accessibility could impact search engine rankings. but there's so many different considerations with font sizes, and using EM and REM versus point and pixels. There's the navigation tag, right? Those folks with accessibility issues don't want to have to listen to the whole nav, and can skip it or bypass it if there's, that nav tag. And then videos, making sure there's captions and so forth on videos. Or I don't think we do this as much anymore, but we used to embed text on images, which isn't really a good accessibility thing.
Yeah.
And if we don't describe it well, with a caption or an alt tag, it can be problematic. So we've definitely noticed a difference, not a lot, but enough that, every point matters. So I think accessibility is something that often gets overlooked and does play a much bigger role than just alt tags. I think anytime you're talking about maps, and I know we're not really talking about maps, we're talking about organic, but when we're talking about maps, the name, address, phone number, making sure that that's accurate and matches with everything that a search engine might find online. Maybe even a Google map or some sort of a map to show the user where you're talking about. Since there's 2 Orange counties, right? There's probably more than that. There's California and Florida. So having a map sort of helps someone visually know that we're talking about a certain place. Even if it's just a diagram of a map, we do that sometimes with some of our attorneys that have multiple locations. We'll show a diagram of the actual state, so that they go, oh yeah, that's my state, or they recognize it right away and know that the service provider works in that state. The only thing I had that really wouldn't apply to organic, but more toward map rankings, is directions. Having a link to directions, because it's great if you are brick and mortar, like a car repair shop, but you don't give users a way to find your address. That can sort of be problematic. So I think those are part of the basics. Is there security, privacy, accessibility, name, address, phone number if you're doing maps, and then hours and directions, I would say.
Yeah, and just even just the basic meta title, content, OPFs on the page to be localized as well. And if you don't have, I don't know if you have a marketplace or you don't have the resources to gather all this information, a lot of the times we would crawl some of Google Maps results for certain places and get those addresses and that information, because we know that's always up to date and accurate. Is the fastest way if we weren't able to collect it at a fast rate, or collect that from our suppliers as well, is another tip on the back end if you have a marketplace
Awesome.
to gather all that information.
Yeah, and it's crawl, not scrape, right? So.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think for anyone who's watching, who's doing multi-location, I think that's at least start with those things that we just talked about. If you're planning on really trying to scale up, I think those things are sort of paramount. Some next level SEO things that we could talk about that aren't quite as geeky as some of the things that we had on the list include like location images, and there's even in some of the threads, multiple threads that we're in social groups, there's folks that are geotagging images, and there's a lot of controversy around whether there's a benefit or not a benefit, and it's kind of funny to watch. One of the things that we've done on the organic side is we'll just make sure that our image is obviously optimized to load fast, and it's a progressive JPEG, or we're using a new format like WebP. But we'll name the image after what we're going after. We did this with public storage back in 2000. It was like 2014, 2015. What we did was we renamed all of the ACD65.jpg to self-storage-facilities, and then the address or the city and zip. And that seemed to make a difference. We saw, I think it was like a 6% lift. And it also helped us to show up in Google Images, which isn't really where people are going to look for storage, but it might be where they go to look to see what the storage looks like from other people's perspective. So if your listing shows up in there, and that's where we noticed the biggest difference, is that our images started showing up in image search, and we did see an incremental lift in local landing page by just naming, just changing the name of an image, which seems really silly, but
Yeah.
it seemed to work. Did you guys do that at Tripadvisor? Did you?
Yeah, all of the images are very descriptive, named, and I found that as well. It wasn't really something that we focused on as SEOs for TripAdvisor, but we ranked a lot for image search. And I think that does help with, overall brand and recognition and visibility.
Especially for travel. That's the
Yep.
first place I go to. Whenever I'm showing anyone where my wife and I are going for our 20-year anniversary this year, which got pushed till December, but I always go straight to Google Images and I'm like, that's our room right there. I don't go to web search. I go straight to image search.
Right.
Other thing are reviews. And this is a really tough one, I think, for especially for larger chains. Smaller restaurants work really hard to earn their clients' trust in business, and they get good reviews, unless they're a crappy restaurant, and then they kind of go out of business on their own. But for a large chain, let's just say an Applebee's or an Olive Garden, they have thousands of locations, and it's tough to figure out a way to moderate. So if you're going to take in like native reviews, where it's your survey system or a third party like Bird Eye or whatever, it's hard to moderate it. And at one point, I remember going to one of our clients' offices and looking at the big monitor they have that shows a location up, and on the location it was streaming reviews that were like live reviews, and I'm like some of them are pretty bad and graphic, and I'm like, who's moderating this? This is embarrassing, because that was the challenge. So they had to pull it off because there really wasn't a way, unless you hire like 2 or 3 dedicated people to sit in the corporate office all day long and pick through tens of thousands of reviews every day. It's just not possible. But we see the value in it. One, it's like user generated content. When you have to scale, UGC is the easiest way to do that. But you don't want to gate your reviews, because that's unethical. That's just saying, hey, all of our reviews are good. See, and by doing that, it's telling people that you're not being honest about what people are really saying about you. So it's kind of a tough conundrum. Now, you at Tripadvisor, you guys had a lot of reviews on specific attractions. So how did that work, and how did it benefit SEO, or was it even part of the SEO strategy?
Oh, yes, it was.
Every single review is actually indexed as an individual page.
Okay.
So it covers just a huge amount of long tail, right? And it's user generated. You don't have to moderate it or even really care if the sentiment is good or bad.
Right. So it was like a sub-page, so that if someone were to do a search for Disneyland reviews, it would be Tripadvisor, Anaheim, Disneyland / reviews sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too that was really helpful for us is we were constantly working with our engineers to gather different, come up with different algorithms to basically test out pulling different review snippets. I'm sure you've seen on the Tripadvisor site at scale to different listing pages, that local listing pages and things like that don't have as much content, and really trying to pull out different key words about an attraction or that hotel or that city that people have mentioned, because those end up we get so many reviews per day that those would get buried eventually, but we can repurpose them and resurface them on some of these other more thin content pages. And we saw, pretty good lift with that. And I've seen Yelp seems to be doing something similar, where they're adding snippets of review on their listing pages now as well.
That's controversial, because the sentiment from business owners is that they always show the negative review in the search results on Tripadvisor, or on Yelp anyway. So you actually worked and tested so that you could control the snippet that would show up in Google with reviews?
Oh, not the Google snippet, just snippets on our own site.
Adding more content. Basically, giving you a better understanding. If we didn't even know what the attraction really was because the owner didn't put anything in there, we'd be able to tell the user what the thing was by, the number of mentions of something. Yeah.
Yeah. And we also, just to get inspiration from content, because we have so many passionate travelers that would write these detailed itineraries or things that they liked and didn't like about a place. We had a team kind of going through that and pulling out helpful information. And then we would try and think of new content that we can do at scale using that helpful information, that more localized experts that are there and doing this stuff that, maybe we've never been to that destination, but we have a bunch of reviewers that have to inspire that kind of content as well.
Amazing. I wonder if you could figure out a way to program which reviews are the most helpful, and grab the one that seems to be the most helpful and use that as a subheading underneath the main H1. So it's whatever destination reviews, and then a quote, that's from the most helpful review, if that would benefit bounce rates or conversion. It's interesting to think about. I know we used reviews, especially for auto repair shops that tend to get a bad reputation. We use the reviews subpage as a way to manage ORM. So if you were to do a search for the auto franchise and modify it with reviews, the first thing that comes up wouldn't be a Yelp or a Google review. It would actually be the site.com/location/reviews, so that you had a little bit of control over it. But even then, you have to be careful because you don't want to gate them. You just want to filter and sort them in a way that sort of shows the positive side, but without trying to hide the negative. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
I think in general, even just addressing reviews, whether they're good or bad, just, showing some engagement as a business is, really helps with trustworthiness. And then also by actually looking at them and using the content, it can become a really valuable part of your product cycle and feedback. Some complaints, maybe new features.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about ways that businesses can put reviews on their page to get a Google snippet without having to worry about looking silly and promoting a really bad review. I think that's a challenge that all businesses sort of need to figure out. Again, without gating, maybe they could, and this is something we haven't tried, but maybe they could just state something on their page that says, these are our favorite reviews. To see all of our reviews, click here. And then they put that on a page that can be crawled, but you just put a no index tag on it so that Google doesn't index that all reviews page. So it's reviews/all. You're showing all the reviews. You're giving them the option to do reviews, but you're only showing a small segment of your favorite reviews on the page. I don't know if they'd even show a snippet if you did that, but it would be interesting to test.
Yeah, hiding it behind some sort of pagination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard they don't care about pagination anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's a tough one, and this still falls in our next level, is localized content. So outside of just reviews, it can be really tough. And one of the things that we had suggested for one of the restaurant chains we work with is a Google form. Basically, we put a form together. We said, hey, send this to all your franchisees. And the questions were to get evergreen answers, like what are some of the nearby colleges and universities? What are some popular attractions that aren't likely going to go anywhere in the next 10 years? What are some of the major parks, and what are maybe some things about the history of the city that make it so interesting? Who are the teams, the sports teams in the area, and where are their stadiums in respect to where the business was? And we thought these were all good questions that wouldn't be something that would have to be changed every year or modified. That would be pretty evergreen, unless something horrible happens or a theme park closes or something. But there was a lot of kickback on it. The kickback was that franchisees won't understand why we're doing this or put the time into it. And I'm like, well, just do it anyway. And those that don't, we'll do it for them. Then the second challenge was, who's going to moderate 2,000 Google Form submissions, right? And we're like, we'll do it for you. And they're like, yeah, but we can't really have a third party doing that, representing us if we're saying something about our restaurant or in our area. So the sort of the crawl, walk, run is one of the contacts there. Wanted to do was, hey, let's put some drop downs into the back end so they can pick and choose some things. So that way, at least there's varied content, even though it's a lot of the same fields. The actual variable will be different. The attribute will be the same, but the variable will be different. Like, I guess that's okay, because then it turns 1,700 semi-identical pages into more like 400 semi-identical pages. And it's still challenging. How did you guys handle that at Tripadvisor with localized content? Did you have like an army of writers, or what'd you do?
We did have an in-house on our, which was amazing. They were on one of the brands, our Viator brand that we owned, and we would write unique content for the Tripadvisor site and then their other brands. So there'd be two different versions of the same localized content, essentially, so that they're both stayed unique. And then dynamic content as well, like different product shelves showing based on like location as well and interest of like the behavior of those users. User research, like definitely sync up with your user research team. We did a lot of that to kind of understand the behavior of different people in different locations and based off of that, what they might be interested in. And then internal linking wise, we had a bunch of, as you've seen, the nearby, based on our whole taxonomy, like we'd link to a bunch of nearby cities or nearby attractions, et cetera. So that way there's an interlinking strategy as well with it.
That's incredible.
Definitely.
Yeah, when I think about that sort of really hyper local content, the first thing that comes to mind is the person who writes it. Do they get to go and visit that destination and
A lot of times, yes.
Yes.
How do I get that job?
We're like, I wish I could be on that team.
Yeah, I just want to travel and take pictures, you know?
Yeah.
It doesn't. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the second part, of course, has to play into the business goals, right? Your business goal isn't to, hey, let's just drive as many people we can to the website. It's let's get people to book trips and vacations and make purchases, you know, and get them to click on ads. I'm sure there's a lot of different ways that Tripadvisor was monetizing that traffic. I remember looking at like breakfast restaurants, Las Vegas, and I got an email like the very next day with, you know, here you were looking at breakfast restaurants, here's a list of them. And then I get retargeted wherever I went with, you know, the same Tripadvisor ads. I'm like, wow, you guys are really good.
Aggressive PRM there.
That's how marketing works, though. You guys really nailed it. And I thought that was amazing. It wasn't just that I searched and found a Tripadvisor page, but when I got there, because you personalized my experience and knew who I was as a user, you could continue to send me content and say, are you still interested in? I thought that was incredible. So, and the teams there, I'm sure they played together really well. Like they'll say, hey, one of the things that we want to do is get more people in for this. And the SEO team would work with the writers to, you know, to build that, right?
Yeah, and I think like another tip for like, which was very collaborative there. So you made sure you had one representative of all like products, CRM, the marketing, the content, SEO for these big product ideas to make sure that we were all together on the same page and everyone could bring their different perspectives because everyone's different expertise together. And then we would run, you know, a variety product runs their type of A/B conversion test, and then we run our traffic test, and then together kind of figure out the page layout and where the content should live and all of that based on those findings.
Nice. And then you measure the results and you do it again.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Over and over and over and over. Never ending.
I think that was all I had on the next level SEO stuff. The location images, reviews, native reviews, and localized content. The one thing we didn't talk about on reviews is using third-party reviews. I know Google sort of frowns on that and rarely will show a snippet if you're borrowing from your Google My Business or Yelp or somewhere else. So it seems like the consensus now is if you're going to do reviews, get your own, right? And then if a client visits and they've already left you a review and they come back and they do it again, instead of pushing them back to even another review, unless it was a poor one, then you push them to, you know, to leave a review elsewhere, right? That seems that way anyway. So here's the tough one: advanced SEO. This is the one we're probably going to lose some people on who aren't as geeky as we're probably going to get on some of this stuff. The first one I think is this structured markup. You know, with the latest Google updates, and there's been like 3 or 4 in the last month.
Yep.
I believe it was April 26th and then May 4th. You know, we saw some changes and shifts. Several months ago, we saw the FAQ page markup start to show up very prominently in search results, and the whole world, you know, went crazy trying to make sure the review snippet and their FAQ were in the search results because you have all this real estate now that people can click on. And they went from like 6 down to like 4, I think, right? So it's like they're still kind of testing to see what's helpful and what's not helpful, but there seems to be sort of the mad rush right now in doing that. What were some of the markup tests that you guys did at Tripadvisor that you learned were good or bad?
FAQs was big for us because for the travel industry, right when we got word of that, we just came up with a plan. It was the hotels and attractions team to implement that as fast as we could. And we were the first, at least on the attraction side, because there was a few other people with hotels side of the business that are competitors that did it at the same time. But from the attraction perspective side of the business, we were the first to get FAQs on all of our things to do pages. And that was a massive win for us. We were already Tripadvisor. So with the schema markup, you already have to be basically on page 1 for it to make a difference with FAQ. So we were already in the top 5 position for a lot of these pages, but it just helped increase like our click-through rate and our interaction. And we were able to set up tracking with all that too, to see the interaction that people had with questions and which ones seemed to be the ones they were most interested in, and they'd click through to. And to do that at scale,
that's what I was going to ask. Is what was
yeah.
I do that across thousands of locations? You just magically came up with questions that fast?
So the approach for us was trying to figure out the most broad type question that could apply to many destinations. So like, what are the most popular attractions, things to do based on our category type and tour type that we can kind of do at scale for these destinations, to start off really broad. And then because we know that Google loves like list item, bulletproof or bullet point answers. So then we kind of structured everything like that. And in those bulleted lists, we would then link back to individual products or the categories or attractions that we were listing. So that way it gave us the capability to partner with our content team to make sure like the question wording and part of the answer wording was, brand approved essentially. And then our engineers would code in and we'd pull in the names of products and pull in the names of attractions and switch out the geo name and do that at scale. So that prevented us from having to write everything manually. We just had one kind of template and we'd have data points and then we'd switch them out based on our data and then do that at scale.
Yep. It was interesting that Google started offering in their GMB the whole questions about this business a few years ago, and then all of a sudden FAQ pages all over the place. So it's interesting that those things happen at the same time. One of the things I tell those clients that have a few locations is just do a search, right? Just do a general search and see what people are saying about you or about it. If you're in travel, about your destination. So if it was Disneyland, you just punch in Disneyland and see what people say about as potential ideas. One of the things when we're working with Dole, the pineapple company, is when we're thinking, hey, what questions people have about our products or or about something that we're doing, we just did a search for it, and every single question was answered by a third party. And I'm like, this could be all our content. This could drive more traffic and build more brand authority to our pages, but we're just giving it away to these third parties. So it's interesting how much traffic we give away to other parties. One app I work with right now that's a gas discount app. The question was, how much is the premium version? And some other website comes up with a featured answer that has the price. And I'm like, guys, let's get this in our meta description. Let's get this structured markup on the page. Let's get this in our our FAQ page. So we'll see how it pans out. But that was like a big red flag. I think every business needs to do that. Look for your product, your service, and your brand. And see what Google's suggesting as common questions, and be the one that have the best answer on it. And maybe even go the next step and get other websites to share your answer. And one way that we've been doing that is through Google Alerts. It's pretty hard to do at scale, in the hundreds of thousands. But when you have 20 to 50 locations, it's not too difficult to do that. And it might take some time to do it, but it's worth the effort anyway.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to add on to that of just helpful tools to you, like Answer the Public's a really nice tool. People also ask when you do a Google search, seeing all the questions there, you can use Screaming Frog to crawl that if you don't have time to do that manually. And SEMrush has a good content tool as well that you can spit in, and it spits out all these different, the magic. It's awesome. It'll spit out different ways, different questions, because to your point, and that's what I'm seeing starting out with Instacart as well, is just so many bloggers are answering questions that are very basic questions about how the company works that we need to add to our pages on just the whole process. So I think that's really important.
Yeah. And you could port, you could port all of that data, whether you use it on the landing page or not, to your Google Action Console as questions that you can answer via Google Voice. Yeah. So the more you think about it. Other markup that we've seen be really effective for the restaurant franchise anyway was events. So when there's a big event like a Halloween special or whatever, across all the local landing pages, we can put some event markup. The link in the snippet would go to the actual promotion page, but the date and the name of the event would be right there in the search result, giving us an extra row, which, like you'd mentioned, can help with click-through rates and that sort of thing. So so events we thought was a really good one. What else do we have?
Definitely. We used just the standard local business markup as well on the property pages for an actual attraction or hotel or whatnot. And although that didn't actually improve traffic when we tested it, we rolled it out just to improve our chances of showing up in Google in different ways.
Right on. What do you think else would be an advanced attribute? I keep thinking like maybe dynamic content, or what are some things that you think are really complex that could have a benefit towards a major chain, or even a travel destination with hundreds of thousands of destinations? What other more complex things can we do? I know one question that comes up a lot is, should we be doing AMP? And I feel like, and Marty Weintraub and I were talking about this the other day, I feel like this whole core vitals thing is to push web developers to replace AMP, with their own fast loading, web pages. His feeling's the same about it. So, in that question of AMP, it's like, if you really cannot, with your technology stack, if you can't get your page to load lightning fast, AMP is a good substitute for it. But ideally, unless you're a news website and you need to be in the news carousel, you need to just rebuild your site to be lightning fast. And even if you have to leverage new JavaScript libraries or use React or something, there's always a way to make it faster without without having to use AMP. What are some other things you could think of that some businesses should consider if they have the resources to do more advanced local landing page SEO?
Just a comment on AMP real quick. We did do some experiments with that on one of Tripadvisor's smaller subsidiary websites, and I think it was only after a couple of months we ended up killing that project. It didn't it wasn't worth it. I think it actually hurt our traffic.
Yeah, especially if the user experience isn't the same. Like
exactly. Yeah, and it wasn't. It was there's a lot less content.
I feel like a lot of AMP pages are really just doorway pages more than anything. Just use it to get the top ranking, and then once they get there, drive them to the page they really want to get to.
Right.
So it's
like an extra step.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. By the way, I did pull the stats that I've mentioned, so I have a few stats for you on local landing page if time permits. So we'll see if we can get to it. I have a huge page full of them. Cool. Well, we already kind of talked about the FAQ page. That was something we had on the list that we wanted to talk about, was just that markup in general. And you said you saw a pretty significant difference in click-through rates. Are you measuring that with like Search Console and just kind of pulling that in with an API, or what kind of things should enterprises be using to run those sort of tests?
Google Search Console, and then you can add, we had an MC, we called it MCID parameter in there, and you can put a little code if you want to put a link in your answer in the schema markup, like for example, ours is like learn more. And then if they click on that link when it's expanded the FAQs and land on your page, it kicks back to us saying that, okay, they came through and click that link with their FAQs, because you can use Google Search Console, of course, just to see like the impressions and clicks, but we wanted to see the actual interaction with it. And then we partnered with our analytics team to get a good measure on that. And so that's how we measured the interaction.
A lot of people clicking the links within the FAQ then.
Yeah. And we put up at the time, I think it was, you can have up to 11 questions if they did the show more, and it would drop down to that. And so depending on, we also built out a logic where depending on, different cities and regions might not have as many products. So we built out a whole logic where like certain questions might not show up if they don't have products in that category and all that. So the number of questions.
Then else, right?
Yeah, the number of questions varied on each one, but we had up to 11, but most of the interactions were just on the top 4 because, or top 3 that were shown. So
interesting. Yeah. That's really cool. So it's definitely worth testing. I didn't even know we could do links until on a month and a half ago, and I'm like, we could do links. Oh, we could even do blocks. We could do emojis in here and do some really creative things. So
exactly,
we've been having a lot of fun with testing to see how users interact with the content and what Google thinks of it. Cool. So do you guys want to hear some stats?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yes, please.
Here, so I'll be looking at numbers instead of you guys for a second.
No worries.
So what we did basically is we looked at 100 food and dining local landing pages. We looked at the website, to understand some basic website things. We looked at city level page, state level pages, and then of course the store or restaurant level page to find common attributes or unique attributes that might play a role in helping a page rank. And of those 100, I started to sort of do some math and understand percentages. At the site level, and this is really interesting, well, to me anyway, if we haven't lost like everybody who's been watching so far on all this geeky stuff we're doing. The first one was auto locate. If you had to guess how many of these multi-location restaurants were auto locating for users, when you go to a page and it says, would like to know your location, you click yes or no, what percent do you think we're using auto locate, if you had to guess?
I would say a smaller percent than you'd expect. I don't know. Less than 50, I would say.
It was 24%.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And this is a little bit of a scary statistic. Only 84% were using HTTPS.
That
So-
doesn't surprise me. Just because like web might not be like, their
But this
first
is
priority. So
multi-location brands. This isn't like a
Yeah.
mom and pop. These are
crazy,
corporations.
though.
So 16 of them did not use HTTPS. I thought that was really interesting. Locator, how percentage of them that had an actual location locator? I'll just tell you, it was 95%. So not surprised at that one.
Yeah.
The ones that didn't probably only had 40 to 50 locations or something, right? And they just listed them all on a page. 35% used a state level page. 46% used a city level page. And I think the reason why a lot of them didn't use the city level page is because maybe they only have one location in each city. So I thought that made a little bit more sense, because if like Umami Burger, right? I think there's only one in Anaheim, right? And
Yeah.
one in certain, parts of LA. So it makes sense. Why would you have both if you only have one location? It's just an extra click.
Exactly.
And then property level pages. This was interesting because I would have assumed every single one of them would have a local landing page for each store or restaurant, and only
They don't.
64% did.
Oh, wow.
That's shocking because that's an easy win right there.
Yep.
Like, 'cause
Easy way
you-
to get your
Yeah.
things in there. And the other thing that we looked at was when you perform a search for the brand, does the location near you show up as a site link? And we just want to know, where you optimizing your site well enough that Google could figure out which page to show as a site link. And because only 64% had a property landing page, only 63% actually did. So it correlates to the number of people. So if you have a local landing page and somebody just searches for Umami Burger or for McDonald's or whatever, it's pretty likely, like there's only a 1% deviant here. It's pretty likely that they're going to show that page in the search results. So the user doesn't have to go from your home page
Yep.
to the state, to the city, to the local landing page. As long as you have a local landing page, they'll show that. And I know that seems like one of those topics where you shouldn't create a page for every single location. It's duplicate content, but it's working and it helps the user get the experience that they wanted. So I don't think that's going to change.
Yeah.
55% had no markup. So
Ooh.
Another easy win of
Yeah.
just easy using your content that's already there and marking it up.
cool. So that was site level. Those are the site level statistics that we pulled, and we'll make sure we share this with everybody too, outside of just me yammering on about it. Page speed. We know page speed is a big issue. There's a whole blog post on the Google blog about how we're using page speed as a ranking signal. Really interesting. The average page speed was a D when we measured it through GT metrics. It was a D. Only 8%, six of the locations we looked at had an A score. So 8%, only 8%.
Makes me feel a little better about the site speed.
Yeah, right.
18% were B. Let's see, 18% were also C, 21% D, and then 10% E's. I guess this was a European thing, because I'm like, what's an E? And then page speed F was 26%. So 26% of them failed on page speed. So while we know they're probably using page speed, we know they're not using it exclusively. And if there's other ways that you can get around it because of your technology limitations or CMS limitations, I think you're safe. I mean, obviously try to make things better, but you can still rank, 26% of the, food and dining, top food and dining multi-location brands don't pass a page speed test.
TripAdvisor's page speed isn't very good either.
No,
Yeah.
definitely not.
We have a lot of features too. That's
Yeah.
average load time in seconds. What's your guess?
I think
100.
ours was around 10, so
Well,
Wow.
yeah.
yeah.
6?
Hold on, I gotta go through.
Yeah, it's
a lot.
Would you say 6?
that was my guess.
Yeah, that's her
5.5.
guess.
It was
So you're close.
The average paid speed size, 2,777K. The average number of requests, where you're requesting a different style sheet, different JavaScripts, just the average number of requests that the page pulls. What's your number? What do you think?
That I don't know.
It's about 115,
Wow.
Okay.
which is actually lower than I thought it was going to be. It's
Not
going to be a lot higher. There were some that had like 400 or 500 requests. I'm like, oh my God.
A lot.
How many of these property level store landing pages of the 100 we looked at had native reviews on them?
I'd hope almost 100% have some sort of native reviews on them.
Well, remember, only 63 actually had a local landing page. So
Yeah, so out of the ones that have those local landing pages, though, I'd hope they're all trying to collect reviews in some way, whether they own it or they don't.
big zero, not a
Really?
single one of them. So what could you
Really?
do as a multi-location brand to have a competitive advantage is get your native reviews going.
Yeah,
I can leave none of them.
I'm surprised.
Mhm.
You can learn so much from that too. Like you can just learn so much from those reviews as well for like future content.
Now we did this before the COVID, so we're going to do it again after, probably in July.
I think
Some brands are still kind of getting, adjusted. So
Yeah.
I'm interested to see who changes and what changed the most from the first time we did this.
Yeah, I'm
definitely.
interested to see what they invested more in as far as like their web presence, with COVID and everything.
So
Like
what do you think
a
the
lot of
average
people.
number of GMB reviews are? I know it doesn't apply to TripAdvisor, but
Yeah, I know. A different
Yeah.
world over here.
now these are, like I said, some of the top chains. I mean, Starbucks is in this mix, McDonald's and Apple.
You mean collectively, like that they've collected collectively or like by page type?
Average per location.
Okay.
50,000.
Really?
That's my
You think
guess.
one location has 50,000 reviews?
Well, it depends on what it is.
It's
Okay.
actually 505.
Wow.
Is the average. Yep. And you think that many people go into a restaurant every day?
Yeah.
It's crazy that they're not pushing more of their online reputation efforts. I've gone in multiple times to the restaurants that we support, and I'm asking them, hey, were you going to ask me if I'm going to leave a review online because I had a great experience? And they're like, no, we don't really do that.
So are they basically more, it's so interesting to me to find out, like, because we have the restaurants business with TripAdvisor and Yelp has that. I wonder if they're just sending people to TripAdvisor or Yelp to leave those reviews versus their own.
Sadly,
Right.
two of
Yeah.
the ones that we support send them to their own customer service URL without a grading
Okay.
system. It just asks them open-ended questions, and it goes to customer care and is never used for marketing and just goes into oblivion. Totally wasted.
So
Yeah.
much stuff.
I know, so much good.
And you can like set up your template to just collect exactly kind of what you want to know and set, minimal character limit so that they're not writing one word answers like awesome, great, so that you can really like optimize it for SEO too.
Yep.
It's crazy.
The Y word. I know you guys hate this one. Yelp ratings. What's the average?
Oh, on them for their own restaurants.
Well, it was 505
Thousands.
for GMB. So how
Oof.
many for Yelp?
All right.
It should make you feel good.
Definitely
Actually,
300.
It's 351. Right?
What?
That's because 600 are hidden and not approved by Yelp, right?
Wow. I was gonna say like a couple thousand, so only 300 on average.
351 on average, and I think that's because a lot of businesses have made the pivot to Google reviews.
Wow. I see.
They're jaded from Yelp. They're not allowed to ask for Yelp reviews.
Yeah.
There's still a user base on Yelp. I still have the app and the Tripadvisor app, which, by the way, Tripadvisor will be in our next study, I promise.
Oh, nice.
But especially since you've been flanking Yelp, every time I see that, I get excited because I know that you don't filter. In fact, you send out cards to people and you say, please ask for reviews, and we love that. And I'll just run through these because I know we're short on time and we want to do a little lightning round. So Facebook. Oh, by the way, the average rating on Gmb was 4.12. So if you want to rank better in the map packs and maybe even an organic, you probably want to strive for something greater than 1 or 4.1.
That is greater than 1. I was like, hopefully they get greater than 1.
And then on Yelp, the average is 3.18. Oh, it's lower. That's surprising. Well, that's interesting because these are the same people. Why is it lower on Yelp? We know why, right?
Yeah. So annoying.
They filter them out. Facebook ratings, there's on average 368, so really close to Yelp, which is surprising. I didn't think there'd even be that many. And then the average was 4.21. Now, this doesn't really apply as much, and it's not going to be useful when we look at it now because it's recommend. It's not, where you leave a specific score. So not something we'll be able to sort of delta off of, but still interesting nonetheless. And like Google, it's, a whole point higher than Yelp. Cool. So restaurants, Gmb categories, when we're looking at the restaurant side of things, we just kind of want to understand that what percent we're using restaurant as a category. It was 12%. The rest were all individual categories. And we're talking about, when you're optimizing your Google My Business profile, what category you choose can make a huge difference in where you rank in maps. So it was so varied for the individual restaurants. If it was a bar and grill, they started marketing as a bar and grill or American, dining. But for the most part, 12% were using restaurant, and the rest were all sort of varied based on their individual niche. So I had assumed a few years ago that if we went restaurant, we'd go broad enough that we'd absorb more traffic because there's more search for restaurant near me versus, say, bar and grill near me or American food near me. But as it turns out, there's a pretty even percentage of people that are businesses that are using their specific niche and not the broader restaurant and trying to absorb more traffic. So I'm not as worried about that now. But I was thinking, hey, the only way to rank and get more traffic is to go as broad as we can, and that's not a good answer.
Yeah, we actually had an issue with that. I won't say their name, but a large entertainment / not great food place wanted to be listed as both a restaurant and an attraction, and we ended up letting them. And like you said, the pages were identical, but it was just in the 2 different categories. And I think restaurants actually did get more.
Because at a core, that's probably what it was. A restaurant. Business citations, and we're thinking about, and I know these are more map type rankings, but I figured it'd be interesting anyway. I only have a few. So citations, business citations do play an incremental role in how Google's playing Pac-Man across the internet and trying to find your name, address, phone number information. And the average number of citations across these restaurant individual locations was about 60, and a lot of them are syndicating using platforms. Your Rio SEO, your Brandify, your Yext, your some partners or whatever. They're using those third parties. Bird Eye, I think, does some of that stuff too, to syndicate their data to the aggregators, the Localese, Factual / Foursquare, or Foursquare. I think Axiom's gone now. Localese, right? So it's a lot of that. So 60. I thought that was interesting because we generally try to hit that 3-digit number wherever we can, just so that we know we're getting is more or equal to what our competitors are getting. The tool I use for that, by the way, is Whitespark. Darren Shaw has this amazing tool called Local Citation Finder. So we'll use both keyword and we'll put in specific competitors that show up in maps, sometimes 20 or 30 of them, to understand where they're getting their business citations from. And then we assign it to somebody. To do that at scale can be really challenging. So, for those multi-location brands, I would probably focus on those locations that are struggling, where you're in a competitive area, and just do them sort of ad hoc when you have problems. Otherwise, it could be a very expensive and long-term undertaking. What percent do you think had a Google or Gmb 360 virtual tour when you went to their Gmb profile that was submitted, through a Google 360 certified photographer?
I'd say definitely less than half, if that's something they have not invested in yet. Photography and all that, zero.
Oh.
Yeah. Because I feel like that aspect is always the last for resources and, images and that kind of play.
Right. Property level page markup. What percent do you feel on the property level store page, the restaurant page, used markup?
I'd hope most of them.
Yeah, 32% had no markup. So we actually had, 68?
Wow.
Yeah. So, hey, there's an opportunity. Restaurant markup, in this industry for restaurant, 37% used restaurant markup, and the rest were all the specific type of restaurant, or they just use local business as a generic. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to test, I guess, from their perspective. Is it more beneficial? Obviously, you'd think the restaurant markup to have, but does it make a difference? And see for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. 26% no H1 tag. 58% had a Google Map embed. So if you're kind of thinking about what map should I embed on my local landing page that might make it, sort of semantically similar to other brands, seems like Google would be the way to go versus say an OpenStreetMap or, or a third-party map. And that can get expensive because you have to pay for the API now. Custom location images. What percent do you think actually put location images of that location on their location page?
0.
That's what I was thinking.
22%.
A little better than we thought.
Yeah.
My expectation bar has gotten lower and lower as it goes on.
Because it requires moderation, right? You have to verify that it's your location. They just grab it off something, and you have to make sure they're not using some third-party picture that you don't have the rights to, and so it's a tough one. At scale, it's hard to do anyway. Hours listed is 95%.
I was about to be, better be 100% of those people.
But only 21% actually had an open now status. So, bolding and showing kind of, hey, we're open right now. So that's another competitive advantage opportunity, I think. Only 23% listed their menu on the page itself. You had to, the rest of them, you had to go to the main nav or go through some sort of other feature on the page to get to the menu.
What about menu markup?
Let's see. I actually did get that data. Is it on here? Let's see. Mentions link menu. Jump to. I have it, but it's not on this sheet.
Yeah.
I'll share it with you after that.
That'd be interesting. Cool.
Yeah. So this is the big one for me, and this worked really well for the auto repair franchise. Coupons offered on the local landing page. What percent?
I would say, I don't know, I would say less than 50 if it's coupon, restaurant focused offered type stuff.
1%.
Yeah, because I have not seen that in my research yet.
Yep, and they did have like special sub pages or specials main pages, but they didn't actually have a local coupon for that location that you're on, and even that 1% didn't have any sort of barcoding system or QR code system. Now that menus are QR codes with COVID, it's the perfect time to figure out how you can do your online to offline attribution. You've got the perfect opportunity to throw a QR code in there that that you could use when the customer comes into the restaurant. Just one little extra attribute on the QR code, to make it a variant, and now you can track revenue from keywords. But I doubt most businesses will do that or have the the resources, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's what I think.
63% had a directions link. Only 14% had any sort of hyper-local content, and those were generally the ones that had fewer locations. 5% had jump to links on the page so that you would see in the search result in the meta description, jump to menu, jump to coupon, right? So, and you don't do that coding wise, you just put a name anchor, and a hashtag that jumps to that part of the page. Listing the local social links, like your local Facebook page or Foursquare page or Yelp page or Tripadvisor page. Only 15% were actually doing that, where it was the actual location page. The rest just went to the corporate profile. So that gets into Barnacle SEO. So that means only 15% have even considered doing Barnacle SEO, and maybe only 5% thought about it as Barnacle SEO. Right?
Yeah.
0 had video. So between native reviews, coupons, and video, you can crush it probably in organic and local results by just adding a little video that's personalized to that location and why that location is great, and maybe some people who sign releases that they can be on video and get some customer experiences,
Yeah. Or just maybe feature some of your employees that have been there for a while, or some cool creative content you can do with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we're almost at the end. H card, 5% of the sites were actually using an H card on the local landing page, which I think is good, because then you can put that as you can click a link and add it as a contact with all the location information and phone number and all that. I think it's actually a really good idea if it's prominent and people know how to use it. Geo meta tags, 22% know how to use a geo meta tag. So that's encouraging. There's still promise out there for those folks that want to use meta. But I haven't actually heard any discussions on geo meta tags in probably 5 years. So it's interesting that that was even in there. This is a little controversial because Google says that their EAT signals, their expertise, authority, trust signals, are really more about off-page and what other brands and pages and links are coming into the site. And then their quality rater guidelines, which are for a third party they hire to help them to evaluate search results. They talk about a lot of landing page type EAT, even though they don't algorithmically factor those things in. They're just looking at that feedback to try to figure out a way to provide a better result. But when we look at those EAT signals, it's for the most part I look at it as, is this a fake news page? Are there big promises being made? Are there things that you can trust the brand with, like trust signals, such as awarded top in La Mirada, California, by the La Mirada City Foundation or something, right? Or Chamber of Commerce, or just something so that you feel like you can trust the brand and trust the page. Only 1% did anything with that, which meant 1 of the 100 that we looked at. Well, 63. So yeah, it would be a little bit different. The last one I have is actually embedding a 360 tour. We did this for 20% of one of the storage franchises we worked with. And we did see an incremental lift in search rankings, but we also saw a little bit of a drop in conversion rate. But we had that 360 video pretty prominent above the fold on desktop. Had we not had an MDOT and a desktop, maybe that whole test would have been different. So that is my my summary of our little study of looking at local landing pages. You guys ready for the lightning round?
Real quick, are you going to approach these companies and share your findings?
Right.
Me and my 6 employees over here. Sure, why not? Yeah, we got all the time.
Help them out.
Guys, I'm going to need you to come in permanently. Got some cots over here.
Right. 24 hours a day.
Let's start left to right again, Amy. You ready? Lightning round. What are your favorite 3 SEO tools?
Ahrefs for SERP feature tracking.
Okay.
SEMrush for identifying keyword opportunities, and of course, Search Console.
Yeah. Awesome. Yep. Vanessa.
And I would say the same to add on with Ahrefs. We used it a lot with just like backlinks as well when we did different analysis. SEMrush is great for competitor tracking too, because you can compare. It's really like, I like the visuals on that a little bit better, just the graph visuals you can do for competitor tracking and set up different projects, and then Google Search Console as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like SEMrush for being able to do keyword analysis, and I like Ahrefs for doing intersecting links. I think that's a really cool tool where you can actually see where everyone in an industry are getting their links from, and then run a pivot table and say I need to be in these places, right?
Yeah.
And then of course, Search Console now it's more use. Have you guys played with Bing Webmaster Tools?
A little bit.
Really cool stuff in there.
But I haven't really. Yeah, we were very kind of not focusing on Bing as much because most of our traffic came in through Google. So
it wasn't really worth our time.
Yeah.
Some people are like, it's kind of a joke. What's Bing?
Yeah.
Who should we be following on social if we want to be in local search or just really be an expert? Who do you follow that shares really good content?
My lazy answer here is Google.
For me too, I think just
Not
yeah, Google. But just there's a lot of good blogs too, like Search Engine Journal, and is one of my favorites of just staying up to date, or the Google blog itself or the keyword blog. You can stay up to date with their different product updates as well, and kind of if they announce a new type of schema markup, you're like the first to know, so you can start rolling that stuff out faster than your competitors, I'd say.
Right. Yeah, I know, and I know HubSpot puts out a lot of really good content too. I like watching their feed.
Yeah.
I would say others that I like to follow, like Bill Sosky from SEO by the Sea, because he doesn't just say, here's a patent. He says, here's a patent that was written by a guy who worked on this project and has expertise in this area. So if they hired him because he has expertise in this area, it's likely that they might incorporate some of that. And I love that because it's so deep and it's so insightful. So I kind of geek out on that. What are your favorite SEO groups in Facebook or LinkedIn?
Well, I don't have Facebook. I'm like the 1% that doesn't.
Really?
Like the millennial that decided to get rid of Facebook like a while back. So maybe I'll pass this. And then I just have a lot of connections on LinkedIn, and I follow like different people post really interesting articles in the SEO industry that I'll follow. Usually tip being is when you go to a conference, meet people, add them immediately on LinkedIn before you forget. And then that's kind of a good way to stay engaged with what different people are like posting and writing about.
I need to be on LinkedIn more. I get so overwhelmed by it when I get in there that it's
a lot.
So much going on. Yeah. And we have so many more connections too. So it's like, it's not a stream, it's a waterfall, fire hose or whatever. Amy, what are your favorite social groups, SEO social groups?
Yeah, I actually don't really have any social groups, but the Digital Markers organization that we all met through. I would recommend that one.
Yeah, I love that. There's so many people now that are in there, and the happy hours are fantastic. That's my favorite for sure. And then we have SEO Labs in Facebook is actually really fun, and there's a lot of really good characters in there, and they weed the bad ones out very quickly, which I love even more. And then there's also a White Hat SEO group that I enjoy doing that. And some of our friends have a lot of little private groups that are fun. There's one called SEO Buddies that's neat, where there's a lot of SEOs that struggle, as the extroverted introverts that we are, or introverted extroverts. We carry a lot of stress and complexity and as personalities. So we share a lot of what we're going through in that little private group, which is neat. There's a private group too that another friend put together that's just really just private SEO group, and I think there's about 100 of us in there, and we're just helping each other with, hey, why is this page not ranking? And we collaborate and just try to help each other as much as we can. So I really enjoy that.
Do you have to have Facebook for that for people like me, or can I
think you
get in a different way?
That doesn't mean you can't set up like a business.
That's true. I'll just do like
profile.
a business one.
Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah, just create a fake name or something.
Yeah.
One SEO myth you still see that drives you crazy.
Do
you want to go for?
I'd say just that SEO is dead. It's not. It's definitely not.
Yeah, I get asked that question. What are you going to do when SEO goes away? I'm like, well, people are going to stop searching the internet.
Yeah.
If people stop searching the internet, then I guess I have to worry about it. But
right.
And then for me, my pet peeve is like when people come to you and they're trying to start a new website and like, I know you work in SEO. How do I get to page 1 like immediately? And that's just, I'm like, I get annoyed with that.
This group in Australia did a video that was hilarious. It's this little cartoon. I'll have to send it to you. You'll die because it's this businessman. It says, I want to be #1 in Google for credit card. I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's
Oh, I should check it out.
Yeah, it's so funny. For me, I would say PBNs. I think PBMs are pretty annoying to me. I feel like you're trying to game search results, these private blog networks. I'm going to create a bunch of garbage that I want search engines to index that nobody's really going to read or use. And I'm going to leverage that to move up a page that probably shouldn't be ranking on its own anyway.
Yep.
I feel like it's gaming. It's just creating more URLs on the internet that bog down the good content. So I don't know. I'm just not a fan of the PBNs, and there's people that really believe in them. And I get it. I understand it for affiliate marketers that are trying to build affiliate websites, and it's hard to get links to some of these affiliate websites. So I would say build a brand and have an affiliate vertical. Don't build an affiliate site. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Fastest way to rank a new page in organic. So we have a new city that just incorporated, and they've got this cool attraction. Get it to rank right away. What do you do?
I think and this, I don't know if it would necessarily be ranking, but just getting a lot of visibility through marketing and announcement. I don't think from backlinks, PR perspective doesn't necessarily help you, but it's more getting that visibility and announcing it in a way so that people are then start to look for it in Google and want to go there. And you get more traffic on the page through that. But I don't think a backlink from a media site announcing you is necessarily a direct ranking thing. It's more just helping with visibility if it's a new page or a new restaurant or something that just you added into Google.
I remember Matt Cutts said that a few years ago that they basically disavowed all the press release distribution and article distribution sites. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Amy, what do you think? What do you do?
I'd say good quality content and
you've already got good quality content. The goal is to get to the number one spot quickly. What do you do?
Yeah. I think good backlinks too.
Okay.
Just I don't know, whatever governing establishment is involved in what you are, get them to link to you.
Interesting. So they get the industry to give you the credibility. That's a neat signal. That's perfect.
Yeah.
I have a client who's in the watch consignment business, and he'll call me and say, Steve, I'm having trouble ranking a new page. And before you ask, yes, I linked it from the homepage.
Okay, internal linking is important too.
Yeah. So when our restaurant chains decided they wanted to do off premises and focus on delivery just before this COVID thing started happening, they're like, how do we get our delivery page to rank fast? I'm like, let's link it up in the navigation and let's get a link from the homepage of the site. And even if you're an auto repair franchise and you opened a new location that you want it to rank, put a featured location section at the bottom and leave it up there for 30 to 45 days so that it can get some of that page rank, trust to move that page up quickly. And even when you remove it, once you're in the top results and you're getting that click-through rate now, it doesn't matter that you have that link. You've already qualified for ranking by, the month of CTR. So I would say homepage link and navigational link if you can. We're almost there. Most important landing page SEO focal points. So let's keep it around local since we're talking about local. What's the one thing on your local landing page that's the most important? Is it a title tag? Is it page speed? Is it reviews? What do you think is the most important?
Better have your information correct.
Accuracy. That's amazing. You're the first people I've actually heard that said that is accuracy.
Yeah.
Normally it's title tag or something.
Yeah. No, accuracy. Yeah.
That's for both you guys. It's accuracy.
I think so. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Best link building technique.
I think local, if you're doing a local strategy, getting local, I don't know, bloggers or niche bloggers or people that are specific to that city area potentially to get more backlink strength from that local area. Right. I would say, yeah, localized websites that are going to talk about whatever your industry or that page is relevant to.
That works like a champ. Every time we do events, it works like a champ. Amy, what do you think?
I don't know if it's the best, but my favorite strategy is we had one of the subsidiaries had a blog that we wanted to build up, and they created a scholarship program and got a boatload of .edu backlinks. Right. And it helped a lot.
which by the way is a little burned right now too. If you
Yeah.
look at some of those scholarship pages now, they look like linked farms. So it's
Sure.
I think
it was something we did
them
with the
definitely
attorneys.
have.
But
I
yeah,
don't know. It might not work now, but it did work.
it can still work for certain industries for sure. Just some of them are burned. Like I think law firms are totally burned out. Like all the law school scholarships now are just like whole pages of them. So I would say the best link building strategy that we've seen has to be similar to what you were saying, Vanessa, is events for the restaurant chains. You know, when they do a local event, it's so easy to get the community to talk about it and share it, especially if the event is charitable and free and benefits them. Like, hey, we're holding a CPR class, or we're going to be doing a blood drive, and blood drives aren't as nearly as linkable, I think, as some of the more creative things. Giving away helmets to kids for bike safety. It's I think Starbucks does this with their happy hour, right? And their buy one, get ones and things like that. And they promote it and say, hey, come into Starbucks this month and you'll get X. I think those drive a lot. And in the restaurant business, I think it was somewhere close to 5% of the restaurants were promoting heavily and getting links to their Veterans Day free meals on Veterans Day.
Oh, nice.
So 5% of the restaurants were really pushing the free meals for veterans. So that was something I'm sure can get you on those lists of sites that give you free meals on Veterans Day. So I thought that was interesting. And that falls broadly into the event category. All right. And we kind of already talked about this one, but in your opinion, is expertise, authority, trust more important on the website or off of it?
I think it's both.
Yeah.
I think they both influence each other a lot.
Right. I still think if you had to choose one, I would say off.
Yeah.
I would say it's the vote still. It's still page rank and so forth. Cool. And does off-page marketing help with keyword rankings? Not link building, but off-page marketing. Like, let's say billboards and TV. And does brand search have any significance on keyword rankings?
I think it's hard to correlate specific keywords, but I'm sure it does, just indirectly.
So
yeah, I think also I don't know. I think it's interesting when your own blogs that you kind of start on your own, and it's like I always wonder if I had a budget for paid marketing, because it's like I have the authority, I have the expertise. I wrote like every SEO 101 checklist you can do for a new website, but maybe that paid visibility will help kind of correlate in a way to your rankings, at least when you're starting out and stuff. But
we always see a lift in organic when we do display and especially if it's heavy. When I was at Disney, we had this little argument between the display guy and me. He's like, the only reason you get these spikes and high organic traffic is when I run big display ads. And I'm like, no way, I'm working my butt off to optimize. And sure enough, every time he runs a display campaign, same thing. But it's not sustainable, right? Unless you're just always running display. One thing, I think it was in 2008 that Pontiac did is on the Super Bowl commercial, they said, don't believe us, ask Google. That was interesting. And one other client we had in 2010 or 11 had a Cash for Gold store, and he was like the #1 in Orange County because he had his landing page stuff squared away. He had business citations. He had positive, good reviews coming in every month. He was technically qualified to be the best and top ranked. One day, I'm talking to him. He's like, this Gold Max guy just like destroyed me. He has no reviews. He has no citations. He doesn't even have a website. It's just his GMB that's showing up above mine. What the heck is going on? And I couldn't figure it out. And it just was this miraculous coincidence that I was watching late night TV and Robin Leach is on a commercial saying, I'm Robin Leach and go to Gold Max and get the most for your gold. And I'm like, there it is. So I went to the Google Keyword Planner and I looked at the historical metrics. Back then it wasn't really historical metrics. It was just all the metrics. And it showed this huge spike in interest in Gold Max, and not just in Gold Max. It was Gold Max, Cash for Gold Max, and all these different variations that showed an interest in the brand and in the keyword, and just outranked him like crazy for the time that he did. Now, when he stopped advertising, when those Gold Max commercials went away, so did the rankings. They just tapered off and went away. I thought the CTR would help them to sustain, but they really didn't because they weren't attractive in the search results without star reviews and those sort of things. So
And I think that also goes like to our earlier point where, you know, like having a PR media website post about whatever new feature is not like a backlink ranking factor, but like just visibility on social and all these other channels is going to help maybe just bring people like that visibility to your site. And then if you're doing everything else correctly, where this guy wasn't from an SEO perspective, but let's say on top of that, you had your entire page optimized, then eventually you'd hope that that traffic would hold once you kind of stop spending as much on the initial marketing aspect
That's
of it.
true. We forgot to put up our LinkedIns, by the way, for those people who want to connect with us.
Oh,
What
yeah.
I'll do too is, I know there's probably been a lot of questions on the different social channels that we're sharing to. So let me do the banners first to start with.
Get the
Amy's
banners going.
So here's Amy's LinkedIn. You have to excuse the ugly glasses here. I'm getting old. I'm turning
Rocking
44
them.
next week. Can you believe it? 44 on July 3rd.
Well, you look good for 44.
Oh my
so.
God.
That's good.
I don't feel that way. And then here is Vanessa's LinkedIn. So what we'll do is we'll go back to the YouTube and the Facebook, and if anyone did have questions, we'll just kind of keep an eye on it and answer as many as we can within the next few days. And then here is mine. You're welcome to tease me about it as much as you want to.
I love it.
Well, guys, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for spending time with me. And I know there's a million other topics that we'll hopefully, if time permits, we'll be able to do more of these in the future. And anything else you wanted to tell people who are watching?
Yeah, this was really fun. And one of the reasons why I love SEO is just because everyone is like willing to help each other. And me and Amy are both 3 years in, but we've had a lot of great mentors and stuff as well. So it's been great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, good luck at the new position, and
Thank you.
congratulations. And Amy, I'm trying to help you with that other one. So we'll see what happens.
Yes.
Well, fingers crossed.
July's almost here.
All right. Well, I'm gonna stop broadcasting and we'll go into the queue.
Sounds good.
Bye, everyone.
Thank
See ya.
you.